Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Hopefully, we won't have any disruptions like last week. There's no storm tonight, so hopefully everything goes well. So I hope you had a nice weekend. I hope you did something wonderful, and you've been watching the Labour conference. I've been putting out some videos on it, but they haven't been doing very well. Normally, when I put out Labour videos, they don't do pretty well. And it seems to be a bit of a downturn in on the issue of politics at the moment. But anyway, you guys are here, and that makes it all worth it. So wants to say thanks to the moderators in advance for doing a wonderful job, I can imagine, and thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Remember to smash the like button. It helps the stream. So what we're going to talk about, of course, what's happening at Labour conference, and the other conferences are happening later on. The comments from Keir Starmer directed at Nigel Farage, and Nigel Farage has responded. Labour member, who was it, David Lammy, suggested that Nigel Farage had been supporting the National Front or something like that, or neo-Nazis in the past, so he had to sort of walk that back. A few other stories, of course. Zack gatecrashed the Labour conference. There's been a call to bring back Angela Rayner, and a few other stories as well. So I want to cover as much as I can during the live stream. Remember to smash the like button if you haven't already, and let's jump into it. So the first is this clip here where Keir Starmer is hitting out at Nigel Farage, but not just Nigel Farage. So let's have a listen. It's just over a minute long, so have a listen.
Listen to politicians who tell you. Listen to politicians who tell you there's a quick fix, a miracle cure, tax cuts that magically pay for themselves, a wealth tax that somehow solves every problem.
Okay. So the tax cuts, of course, is directed at Nigel Farage and the Conservatives, because they're always calling for tax cuts. And of course, the wealth tax, the criticism of that is directed at, of course, the Green Party and maybe Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, but in particular the Green Party, because they have through Zack been calling for a wealth tax, and Starmer is not on board with a wealth tax, it seems. He's saying that it can't fix all problems. Now, I don't think anyone, to be honest, believes a wealth tax would fix all problems. It would bring in a significant amount of money to the exchequer, but I think it's a bit of a straw man to say, oh, people think it would fix all problems. No, it would bring in a significant amount of money that could be used to fund public services, to lift people out of poverty, to spread some of the money around. You know, Gary Stevenson from Gary's Economics had said, look, a huge amount of money was transferred from the poorest in society and the middle class to the richest in society during the pandemic. So wouldn't it make sense to bring claw some of that money back and put it in the pockets of the most vulnerable people? You know, there are individuals who are sitting on huge amounts of cash, huge amounts of wealth, and they would never be able to spend it if they had lived, if they live a number of lifetimes. They still wouldn't be able to spend all that money. So wouldn't it make sense to spread some of that around so that it lifts everyone or more people out of poverty? But no.
Tax cuts that magically pay for themselves, a wealth tax that somehow solves every problem. The Brexit lies on the side of that bus. Click here for your new country. We can all see these snake oil merchants on the right, on the left, but be in no doubt, conference, none of them have any interest in national renewal, because decline is good for their business.
Okay, to a certain extent, he's right. Decline is good for business. Like, Nigel Farage wants to see the country decline because then he can present himself as the solution. So he doesn't want to see the Labour government succeed. He doesn't want to see Britain improve the situation for ordinary people. He doesn't want to see people better off. He wants to see more strife. He wants to see more poverty, because then he can say, look, hey, Labour have failed. I'm the solution. Now, one thing is to attack Nigel Farage and, if he wants, the left for being doom mongers, but the best way to resolve this, the best way to fight back, is actually to improve the situation for ordinary people. So if you improve the situation, you lift people out of poverty, then there's no need to go and vote for the Green Party, or there's no need to go and vote for Nigel Farage. So the responsibility actually lies on Keir Starmer here. Caroline, thank you so much for that. Unicorn, very kind of you.
I mean, think about it. When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does. So he resorts to grievance. They all do. They want to turn this country, this proud, self-reliant country, into a competition of victims, saying to you, to working people, don't trust in each other. You can't fix this. This is not a great country. But it is conference. It is a great country. It will always be a great country. A decent, pragmatic, tolerant, reasonable country that throughout history has stood its ground, stuck by its values, and built its future without fuss. That's the Britain I'm fighting for conference, a nation of resolve, a land of respect, a Britain built for all.
Okay, that's a pretty good, a good bit of rhetoric towards the end. So something a bit more positive. Don't go down the road of Farage where he's trying to run the country down. He's saying everything is terrible. And of course, he wants more and more people to believe that it's terrible. But it's terrible for a lot of people. 14 years of Tory rot have made the situation terrible for a lot of people. The two-child benefit cap, the winter fuel allowance, and then the U-turn is not helping a lot of people. So these were big mistakes that the Labour Party made at the very beginning. When Starmer took over, the opinion polls had him pretty good. He was doing really well. Then he went along with the two-child benefit cap and the winter fuel allowance change, and this sunk the party. Now, who was pushing that? Was it Morgan McSweeney? Was it people from Blue Labour who were whispering in Starmer's ear, telling him, no, you need to punish the poor, you need to punish the vulnerable, you need to punish people on pensions, you need to punish the disabled. We need to be tough with people, not help them. I'm an advocate of pumping money into the pockets of ordinary people, not into the pockets of the richest in society. The richest have enough. They don't need any more. So many people need support. If you make their situation better, then they're more likely to stick with you. Sorry, I'm missing the super chat. We have one from Brad. Thank you so much, Brad. His speech was a challenging. Did you succeed? No. Don't actually answer that question. Thanks, Brad, I think. But did you get through it? Now everyone's talking to Brad. Jesus, stop talking about Farage, you melt. Slagging him off only gives him more ammo. You need to go after, I think, you need to say, okay, this is what we stand for. We still don't know what Keir Starmer actually stands for. So he used this speech to attack Nigel Farage. Okay, and you can sort of understand that because Farage is leading in the polls. But it can't be just, we're against Farage. You're in power now. Farage is not in power. So you need to improve the situation. I hate to sound like a broken record. I hate to keep repeating myself all the time. But I think if I repeat it enough, maybe people in the government will listen, will hear it, through the grapevine or something. And they'll say, yeah, actually, we need to improve the situation for ordinary people. Like, can you imagine if Keir Starmer issued, at the very end of conference, said, we're going to go with a UBI. It would explode online. It would explode in the media. What the hell is a UBI? People would be scrambling to find out what a UBI is. What would it mean for ordinary people? And people would be celebrating in the streets. Can you imagine you tell everyone, you're going to receive £1,000 a month for the rest of your life? Many people would feel like they've won the lottery. And only Labour will deliver this. The Tories were not interested. Reform UK are not interested. We are going to deliver a UBI, Universal Basic Income. The tech companies are coming in. They're going to make huge amounts of money. We're going to siphon some of that money off. We're going to take part of that increased prosperity and we're going to give it back to people. And it's money for you for the rest of your life. You don't have to worry about whether it's going to be means tested. It's universal. It's for everyone. Wouldn't that be a radical approach? Wouldn't it be a wonderful boost for voters, for ordinary people? People would stop hanging outside hotels. People would stop complaining. They would be celebrating, I think. Or maybe I'm being a bit over-optimistic. UBI. Remember, in the merch store, you can find UBI-related stuff. Just a bit of a plug there. Starmer is emboldening Farage. There was a clip they put out today or yesterday about the boats again. Arresting people, arresting immigrants and sending them away. Give up on UBI, you will never see that. I'm not going to give up on UBI. I think there's still a chance. We hate Keith and Morgan. Witherspoon would be booming. It would actually. The whole mess of politics is just must surely make our call for an independent Scotland stronger. Being shackled to Westminster just drags us down to their level. I think if Labour are not able to improve the situation for ordinary people going forward, I think we're going to see a massive boost in support for Scottish independence, and maybe even a bit of a boost for Welsh independence, because the situation will get worse. And then what's going to happen? Nigel Farage will become Prime Minister. Now, does Nigel Farage care about Wales and Scotland? I won't even bother answering that question. Do you think he cares about Northern Ireland? He'd be happy to see Northern Ireland become part of a united Ireland, because then he doesn't have to care about it anymore. He doesn't care about it now anyway, but if he became Prime Minister, he'd care about it even less. And it's a bit of a block when it comes to leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. The Good Friday Agreement. We just say, look, give Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, give them their referendum on a united Ireland, on a border poll, give them their border poll, and get rid of it. I don't care. I don't have any MPs there. I don't have councillors in Northern Ireland. Why should I give a crap about it? Yeah, I'm not a unionist. Nigel Farage is an English nationalist if he's anything, apart from a charlatan and a seller of snake oil. But when it comes to Northern Ireland, get rid of it. When it comes to Scotland, it's a bit more difficult. And at the moment, there isn't much of a campaign in Wales. There is a campaign, of course, for independence in Wales, but it's not actually, it's not to the same level as Scotland, not anywhere near that. Very odd. I had resubscribed. What the F? Hello, Max, and good peeps. Great to see you back, Stefan, sorry. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Sometimes YouTube do updates and it kicks people off, so make sure that you're subscribed. It's happened to me as well. I'm subscribed to other channels and then I see a video from them and it's like, oh, hey, but I was already subscribed. So sometimes you can get unsubscribed by accident. Sometimes there's an update happening and they kick a load of people off subscribed channels. Mary Lou called for an Irish referendum by 2030. I think if Nigel Farage gets in, that will be given booster rockets. You'll even have maybe unionists. No, we need to get out. We don't want to be associated with Nigel Farage as Prime Minister. And, what would Nigel Farage do for the union? He doesn't care about the union. Like, at least Labour and the Tories pretend to care. But, the Labour Party don't need Scotland. They don't need Scottish MPs. The Conservatives are pretty much dead in Scotland. In Wales, pretty much the same. So they don't really have any skin in the game when it comes to Scottish and Welsh independence. So the only party that's left really is Reform. And do Reform really care? I don't think so. Freckle Punny and Sarah, great to see you on the stream tonight. The Conservative and Unionist Party is the official name. Yes. Official name, but yes. How much do the Conservatives care about the union? When it came to Brexit or the union, Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers chose Brexit on every occasion. So anyway, Nigel Farage responded to some of these comments, and this was quite funny.
I don't normally worry about abuse being thrown at me. I've got kind of used to it over the course of the last few years. But to accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well, this language will incite and encourage the radical left. I'm thinking of Antifa and other organizations.
Look, this Antifa thing is an American concept, okay? Are there anti-fascists in Britain? Of course there are. They have been around since before World War II. But when Farage talks about Antifa, he doesn't, of course, he doesn't call them anti-fascists, because then you'd be like, they're anti-fascists, so they're against who? Oh, they're against me. And what does that mean that I am if they're against fascists? Anyway, so Farage doesn't want to go down that road too much. He doesn't want to explain too much to his supporters about what Antifa actually means. Just keep with the name Antifa. It sounds scary, so just stay with that. But anyway, this whole thing of there are these organizations that want to you're going to incite them to come out and commit violence. I don't remember Antifa burning down or attempting to burn down asylum centers last year.
Fight and encourage the radical left. I'm thinking of Antifa and other organizations like that. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
Sorry, was that Nigel Farage complaining about hurty words? That's Nigel Farage complaining about hurty words. It's all incitement. I thought Nigel Farage was broadly speaking against all of this stuff. Oh, it's only words, don't worry about it. Violence is actual violence, not the words. I think slightly all over the place.
And do you remember, what's her name? Lucy Connolly was invited as a guest speaker at the Reform UK conference. Remember, it was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Who was invited to the conference of Reform? Lucy Connolly. You know, she had hardly got out of her orange uniform, prison uniform. She hadn't fully digested the porridge from the morning, and she was there at the Reform UK conference, attacking Keir Starmer, describing herself as a political prisoner, and Reform UK were holding her up on some sort of pedestal. And why was she in prison? Oh yes, for inciting violence. Not for hurty words, but for actual incitement of violence. And Farage, of course, trying to sell this idea that, hey, wait a minute, remember, I'm a victim here. I'm the victim of hurty words. Like, there was no incitement of violence there from Keir Starmer or anyone from the Labour Party who were describing Nigel Farage as racist. Now, I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here. I know this is not going to be good. I'm not going to get a lot of positive feedback from this. I don't believe Farage is... No, let me rephrase this. Farage is not using racist language because he's careful. Now, does Nigel Farage hate foreigners? Oh, certainly. Unless they're German, like his wife and children. But generally, Eastern Europeans, Southern Europeans probably, people from Africa, people from Asia, unless they're, they have huge bank accounts. People from the Middle East, unless they are sultans or they have, again, huge bank accounts. So he hates poor people who are foreigners. So if you're a foreigner and you're rich, he likes you. If you're a foreigner and you're poor, he despises you. So this is pretty much what Nigel Farage stands for. That's what he is. So do you describe that as racist? Well, technically it could be, but he makes a he differentiates from rich and poor. So you can't really label him as racist. He's xenophobic, certainly, and he will tap into racist rhetoric. He'll tap into racist feeling. He will egg on the worst people in society. He will embolden them. But I don't think we can label him racist, not because I don't think he is, but because we don't have any evidence. That's the difference. Because if you label someone racist, they have every right to say, okay, well, where was I racist? And talking about how Nigel Farage doesn't like foreigners is not enough. Because he hasn't, as far as I know, and there may be clips out there that I haven't seen, but I've seen a lot of his material over the last number of decades. And I haven't heard him say anything about black people. I haven't heard him say anything about Asians. I haven't heard him say anything about an ethnic group. I have heard him criticize foreigners. I have heard him criticize asylum seekers, refugees, but refugees and asylum seekers are not an ethnic group. So he's able to get away with it. Once again, there may be some evidence out there I haven't seen, but we can't label him racist because there isn't the evidence to connect him to that. Now, is he a charlatan, lying hypocrite? Of course. Does he manipulate racists in order to vote for him? Of course he does. Does he feed racists and bigots and charlatans? Sorry, not charlatan, he's the charlatan. Bigots and xenophobes and misogynists and all of these people. Does he feed them the meat, the raw meat that they want? Of course he does. He knows what to say. He knows which buttons to press, but he knows how far he can go. He knows the limits, and he's very good at staying within those limits. I've yet to see him go over the line, so he's very careful. Now, what he says behind closed doors would be very interesting to hear. You know, when there isn't a camera around, maybe we would hear something very different from him. But when he's recorded, when he knows there's a camera nearby, he's very careful with what he says, with his language. So when people call him racist, I think they're falling into a trap, because all he has to turn around and say is, hey, give me an example. And he'll be able to knock it down, because he'll say, oh, this isn't racist. I was going after asylum seekers, or I was criticizing Muslims, or and he can say, well, if he wouldn't say Muslims, he would say Islam. He said Islam is a problem, but he wouldn't say Muslims are a problem. Or he would say people from backward communities are a problem, but he wouldn't say which backward communities. He wouldn't identify them. When he was talking about Pakistani Muslim gangs, Pakistani grooming gangs, of course, he was pointing to Pakistani as a group coming into Britain. So he wasn't identifying all Pakistanis as groomers. So he was getting very close to the line there, but he didn't go over it into a position where he could be called a racist. So I think politicians in particular are falling into this trap of calling him a racist, and then what they're going to have to do after is apologize and say, actually, Nigel Farage is not a racist, and then it helps him. So I think they have to be really careful with what they say. We have a comment from Brad again. Thank you so much, Brad. If you want to stop Farage getting BBC airtime, go to the BBC HQ and paint Clacton over the entrance. Good job. Yes, that's the way to stop him. He'd be like, "Oh, Clacton! I thought I was in London. Better bugger off." Well said. Or Parliament. You could put Parliament. He's not a big fan of turning up to Parliament either, but Clacton really would keep him away. Careful what you say, really. A clever, privately educated individual. He stood next to the leader of the National Front. Yeah, and he will do that. The thing is, he can't be... We could try and make him guilty by association, but he would say, well, look, I've stood next to all sorts of individuals. It's a bit like Trump when Trump says, oh, well, I took a photo with Jeffrey Epstein. That doesn't mean that I was on his island. Okay, I was on his island, but that doesn't mean I did anything. Okay, I did stuff, but it wasn't recorded. Okay, it was recorded. Okay. We'll eventually see that. But it's this plausible deniability. I think this is what Farage is really pushing. He says, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just asking questions. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just pointing out the reality of the situation. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just quoting statistics. So this is how he gets around these problems. He's really good at it. And I think the approach to him has to be different. I've mentioned before how he's very good at weaving lies and truth and presenting a very compelling narrative. I try and pull those strings apart. Pull out the truth and the fiction and expose it as a massive lie. Because he's good at doing this. He will say, look at the numbers coming in. Okay, now let's look at, for example, how many are coming from Afghanistan. Oh, look at how many are coming from Afghanistan. Now we know that in Afghanistan, people treat women with nothing but contempt. Men treat women badly in Afghanistan. And that means that these men coming in are going to treat women badly. There's no evidence to to point to those individuals. It's actually probably the opposite, because if you agree with the Taliban, you wouldn't normally leave the country, certainly to claim asylum somewhere else. So it's more likely that these people are more moderate. We're not saying that they're perfect, nobody's saying that, but they're more moderate and they're more likely to be fleeing the Taliban because they disagree with the Taliban. While Farage would say, well, these people are probably like the Taliban because they came from Afghanistan. And this is a way to tap into the ignorance of people, to the fears of people as well. He's really good at this. And it's not easy to call out. It's not easy to break apart, in a couple of seconds and expose it as a lie. You need a bit more time. A bit like what I think it was James O'Brien who was saying, the lie is halfway around the world before the truth has its trousers on. And we saw it with Anas Sarwar in Scotland, the leader of the Scottish Labour Party in Scotland, where they took a clip of him talking to a group of a Pakistani community in Scotland and took part of the entire video and spread it around the internet, where there was the perception that Anas Sarwar was prioritizing Pakistani people over Scottish people, which was not true at all, but it sounded like he was. So it's Anas irrelevant Sarwar. I know he's irrelevant, but it shows, it's an example of what Farage is doing and what he's willing to do in order to get his message out. He can lie, and then by the time people discover the truth, well, it's too late then. The lie has already been spread. It's like a virus. You're trying to fight the virus, but the virus has spread throughout the world and it's killing lots of people. It's difficult, you can try and get the vaccine out, but it's going to take some time before it has an impact. And of course, the damage has already been done. Follow the money, Farage, yes. Fantastic news, the Moldovan election. Yes, so that was a bit touch and go. There was a fear that the Russian influence in the Moldovan election for the parliamentary election would tip in the balance of the pro-Russian party, but that didn't come to pass. So that's a sigh of relief there. And the result was pretty strong for the pro-European party. So I think if this had happened maybe a couple of years ago, the result could have been different. So it shows that Putin's influence is weakened somewhat. Now we need to see the same happen in Hungary. We need to see a regime change in Hungary now, where the Orban's party is kicked out. Viktor Orban. Two royal child cap seems a good idea to me. Yes, these are the royal family, parasites living off the state, living off the taxpayers' teat, not getting a job for themselves, living a wonderful, luxurious lifestyle at the expense of the taxpayer. And Poland too, yes. Anyway, guys, let's move on. So the Labour conference. So a few stories here. There was one. Don't know why he uses this picture. It's like from 30 years ago. No, this isn't it. Where is it? I'm trying to find it. No. Apologies, guys. There was a video I wanted to show, but they updated it. This is a fight for patriots, but you don't have to vote. But you don't have to vote. You don't have to vote Labour. We get to the end of the speech. Starmer widens his speech back to the country. He says that while people do not want to hear this message from a politician, everyone has a responsibility to change our country. The Prime Minister says there are limits to what the state can do on its own, and that's why everyone is in it together. Starmer says that the politicians of grievance, like Nigel Farage, will never talk about the attraction of unity, as they do not understand it. If you're a patriot, whether you vote for Labour or not, if you stand against grievance and renew Britain, this is your fight too. The Prime Minister brands the politics of grievance is the biggest threat we face, bigger than global dangers. The politics of grievance. I don't know. Do you like this message? Do you think it will work? the politics of grievance. The Tories often use the politics of envy when they're describing poor people wanting a little bit more. Please, sir, can I have a little bit more? No, that's the politics of envy, because I have all the gruel and you have nothing. Oliver Twist. But it's this politics of grievance. I think there is a risk that it could backfire, because people have legitimate grievances. Now, I don't think the people that Nigel Farage is appealing to do, or maybe they do, but their focus on Nigel Farage as their saviour is a big mistake. But people have legitimate grievances. They can't access the NHS. They can't get a decent paying job. They have to rely on benefits because pay, even if they do have a job, it's not paying enough. People can't afford their rent, never mind buying a house. So these are legitimate grievances. So I wouldn't describe them as grievance politics or the politics of grievance. So I don't know if this is going to work. It's possible, but I don't know if it's going to work. It could blow up in the Labour government's face. Anyway, let's move on. I wanted to show you this clip. This is do you know this lady? Her name is Sarah Hall. She, a number of years ago, I think it was about a year ago or a couple of years ago, lost her travel card on the tube, on the underground in London. And she lost it. It was discovered, picked up by somebody, handed in, and it was returned to her. But between the time she lost it and it was handed back to her, she claimed it had been stolen. And she used this episode as a line of attack against the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. And then she had ended up with egg on her face, where she had to admit that actually it was not stolen. I had dropped it, or I left it behind on the seat. Another rail user picked it up and handed it in order for me to get it back. She was trying to portray the tube as completely out of control, full of delinquents, criminals, and then it was good sign. It was an example of a good Samaritan. There are still good Samaritans in London, even though Reform UK tried to present the opposite. Anyway, let's have a listen to her latest grievance.
Before we talk about Sadiq Khan, Sir Sadiq, perhaps we should call him now, can I get some reaction from you about the Labour Party conference, in particular Sir Keir Starmer over the weekend saying that Nigel Farage's policies were racist? We've heard Rachel Reeves repeat today she thinks that this is all racist. David Lammy said it was racist, and Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, went a stage further and claims she believes we're seeing a rise of ethno-nationalism in the United Kingdom. Why did the Labour Party call everybody who disagrees with them racist?
You were on a roll, Patrick, isn't it? I forget what his name is. Martin. You were on a roll there. You were doing so well, and then you had to blow it by saying the Labour Party consider everyone who disagrees with them as racist. Now, I am really concerned about this point that was raised, though, about ethno-nationalism. This is the sort of thing that we heard about maybe 20, 30 years ago in the United States, and maybe in the UK when it came to the BNP and the National Front. There is a serious issue here, but of course nobody's going to mention it because, well, we need these people to vote for us.
Because they've done it for years and they've got away with it for years. And of course now they're suddenly realising they're not going to get away with it anymore because we're all fed up with it and we all just ignore it now. The term racist is just ignored because it's used.
Why did they call everyone racist? No, they didn't call everyone racist. That's the thing. They didn't actually say everyone is. Now, I think they made a mistake because they called the policy racist. So this Nigel Farage Reform UK policy, where they were going to make it more difficult for people to stay in the country because they would have to earn £60,000, I think it is, under the current system, and it'd make it more difficult for people to start the process of becoming a citizen, and it would kick out people who have indefinite right to remain because they didn't meet the new threshold or the new conditions, and it would be deeply unfair because people who've been working, contributing, then imagine you're working, you're doing your best, you're earning £20,000 a year, and then suddenly you get a letter through the Home Office from Nigel Farage's Home Office, whoever the heck the Home Secretary will be, Lee Anderson, God forbid, saying, "Oh, you need to earn £60,000 or you're going to be deported." And you're saying, like, I can't change my salary, and the company I work for or the employer I have isn't going to be able to afford to pay an extra £30,000 just to keep me. I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't broken any laws. I've kept my nose clean. I've paid my taxes. I've, followed the rules. I'm just trying to make ends meet. I'm trying to get by. And now I've been thrown under a bus by Nigel Farage's government. Anyway.
So much by them. Sadiq Khan has always done that.
Sorry, I got distracted. So is that a racist policy? Well, technically you could call it racist, but in a sense, it's not racist. It's really unfair. It's xenophobic. There's a difference between xenophobic and racist. Because xenophobia is just, I don't like foreigners. But racist, you don't like people even of your own nation because of the skin color or because of their ethnic background. That's really the difference between races. Now, sometimes there's no difference between racism and xenophobia for the individuals. They hate black people and they hate foreigners to an even degree. But a policy that's attacking foreigners and not people based on their skin color, yes, it probably disproportionately impact people based on their skin color because, you're more likely to be earning a big salary if you're an immigrant from maybe a European country or from the United States or from Australia. But if you're an immigrant coming in from a poorer country, you're more likely to be earning less money, working, hand to mouth. So you're going to be disproportionately impacted by that. Yes, there are medical consultants coming in from India, from Pakistan, from African nations, but they are generally earning a lot more money and there are fewer of them. But the vast majority of people coming in who are working would be on lower wages and certainly below £60,000. I think that is the threshold that Farage wants to put on it. So you would be, but we can't say it's racist because it would have to stipulate black people or ethnic minorities or something like that. So that's why I think it's dangerous to call it racist, because we can't define it as racist.
During the mayoral race between me and him, he got all fed up with it, and we all just ignore it now. The term racist is just ignored because it's used so much by them. Sadiq Khan has always done that. During the mayoral race between me and him, he constantly referred to me as a racist, far right, because he knew.
Did he? I don't remember seeing that. If you have, once again, if you say things like this, you need to have evidence. In the same way as that if the Labour Party call Nigel Farage racist, they need to present evidence. Like I, in a sense, agree with them, but you actually have to present evidence in the same way as Susan Hall has to provide evidence that Sadiq Khan called her a racist or called her far right. He may have referred to her language as racist or far right, but that's different. Or he may have suggested her policies or some of the policies she supports are racist or far right. But if she said that he did, say, I have a lot of difficulty believing Susan Hall because she's already lied once in order, for political gain. And it blew up in her face. So she's already poisoned the well somewhat.
I mean, only 18 months ago, Martin, that was something you just recoiled from. And it was his way of putting you back in a box. Now, because they're doing it all the time to everybody, people are saying, hang on a minute, this is ridiculous. And the one thing I did pick up today was Yvette Cooper referring to plastic patriots. How dare she? How dare she speak to those of us on the right that are proud of our flag?
She doesn't even know what a plastic patriot is. And then she said, we're proud of our flag. That's what she means. You're proud of a piece of fabric. You're not proud of the nation. You're not proud of the people within the nation. You're proud of a piece of fabric. Does Susan Hall actually understand what plastic patriot means? It's somebody who's a fake patriot. Somebody who'll wave a flag pretending that they care about the nation when in reality they don't. A true patriot is somebody who wants to make their country better, who wants to make it better for everyone, who understands that there's massive inequality in the country and they would like to reduce that because some people are struggling and some people are doing better than they should, better than they have to. So a patriot is somebody who would make sure that everyone is better off. Reform UK don't represent that. Reform UK do not support the idea of improving the lives of everyone. Some people, the richest people, of course, but everyone, you don't even have to believe me. Look at their policies when it comes to the disabled. There was a councillor today talking about how he believes, a Reform UK councillor who said that he believes that SEND children are being overdiagnosed. SEND being special needs education, special education needs and disabilities. So he believes that disabled children are faking it in some way in order to get money, or the schools are convincing children to pretend that they're disabled in order for the schools to get some extra cash. Now, if he has evidence, oh no, he doesn't have any evidence. He explained that he doesn't have any evidence to back up that claim. Okay, not even Facebook evidence, or I heard it down the pub evidence, or a taxi driver told me evidence. No, not even that. This is the problem. Sandy Khan is a good mayor. Susan is very special. So a plastic patriot is somebody who pretends to actually care but doesn't really care. A real patriot is somebody who truly cares about the people around them, who wants the country to do better, wants everyone in the nation to succeed, to be lifted out of poverty. A patriot would be against the whole concept of a food bank. No patriot, I believe, could support the existence of a food bank, because a food bank keeps people, it's not it keeps people back, but it means that the state has failed. It means that society is not doing its job. No one should have to rely on a food bank. If a food bank exists, it means the state has failed. So how can a patriot be happy with a food bank? I would love to ask these plastic patriots, what's your opinion on food banks? Shouldn't they be done away with? Shouldn't people receive enough money to live so that they don't have to rely on food banks? Shouldn't people earn enough money? How do we deal with that? Well, we need to tax the big companies more. We need to funnel more money into the welfare state so people are lifted out of poverty. We need to have, a triple lock on benefits so that people never fall into poverty. People never fall below a certain standard.
Proud of our monarchy, etc., refer to us all as plastic patriots. They're a disgrace, Labour are an utter disgrace.
What struck me as well earlier on today was Shabana Mahmood was talking about a new progressive patriotism as the only acceptable form of patriotism, a patriotism where we all unite under the flag and put aside our differences. And yet what's striking me is incredible, Susan Hall, is that the policies...
So is this supposed to be journalism? It's like what I do is I spoon feed the talking points to the guest, not actually ask them questions.
...of Nigel Farage, the policies increasing of the Conservative Party to detain, to deport, to limit numbers, to make sure people speak useful English, to not allow them to have criminal records. And now
allow people to speak useful English, does that include Lee Anderson?
Labour Party policy, presumably then they're not racist.
Oh no, it's not racist if it's done by the left, if it's done in the name of progressive. And they all like to think they're very, very nice people. And
guys, our problem is that we try to be very nice people. We think we're very nice people. Shame on me, because I'm thinking I'm a nice person because I want to end homelessness. I want to see food banks closed down so that people don't have to rely on them on them anymore. I'm virtue signaling. Yeah, I don't actually care about these things. I'm just pretending to. It's like in order to win some sort of political goal. I don't really care about people and just pretend. Is this how these people think? Is this how Susan Hall thinks? That she like, what does she actually think? That if you're against poverty, there's something wrong with you. You need to give like poor people a kick in the arse. They need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They need to eat a flag or something in order to make ends meet. I don't know, to fill their bellies. Why not eat a flag?
and therefore everything they do is nice and it's kind and all the rest of it. And any of us on the right are anything but nice and kind. And if we...
You are the ones who are talking about, I'm not saying everyone on the right, but was it Ben Habib, when he was asked about people drowning in the sea, what did he say? Just leave them there. Let them drown. Now, imagine any other situation. Let's not talk about asylum seeker. Can you imagine a situation where somebody said, I was out in a boat last weekend and I saw someone drowning in the water and I thought to myself, let's just leave them to drown. Like, what would go through your mind if you heard so? Were you in a position to help them? Yeah, I could have helped them. Wouldn't have created any problems for me. There was lots of space on my boat. I was wearing a life jacket, so even if I did fall in, I would be okay. We had a rope that we could have pulled them in with. We had a buoy that we could have used to take them on board. But I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I would prefer to see them drown out of some sort of a sort of sick fantasy of mine to see people drown at sea. Now, what would go through your mind if somebody had said something like that? Would you say that was a bad person? I know we're not supposed to use good and bad. They're too simplistic of terms. But generally, if I saw somebody talking about how they let someone drown, I would say, well, this person is probably a psychopath, because that's how psychopaths think, or a bad person. Okay. So when the right say about, well, look, I'm just repeating what many people on the right say, or some people on the right say. They say, well, we should use the Navy to sink the boats, or we should use gunships. We should use drones to attack them and sink the boats. We should force people back. We should dump them on some island. It doesn't sound like very humanitarian language to me. What are the people on the left saying? Well, we should provide them with decent accommodation. We should allow them in. Now, most reasonable people also on the left would say, look, people should come in, but they should have their claim processed. They should be allowed to work so that they're not a burden on the state. They should be able to contribute. And of course, if there are people, and most reasonable people on the left, I've yet to meet anyone who actually believes the other of this. What I mean by this is, most people would say, when somebody comes in, if they have a legitimate claim, they have every right to stay. And if they don't have a legitimate claim, then they need to go, because you need to have a standard. I think the vast majority of people on the left support that position. Now, are there people on the left who would say, just let everyone in and don't process, just allow them to run rampant? Maybe they do exist, but I've yet to meet any of these people. I actually don't think these people exist. Or if they do, they don't exist in a position of power. So they don't exist in a place where they can, in the same way as, are there flat earthers? Yes. But are they in positions of power? Well, maybe with the exception of the United States. No, they don't have any power. So we don't have to worry too much about those people. Are there racist bigots in the world? Yes, they are. There are. Should we worry too much about them? Not until they have power, or not until they have significant influence. We shouldn't stay awake at night because there are racists and bigots online. But if they get into positions of power, or they're able to influence power, then that's a concern. Same with people on the left. People who say, we just let everyone in and we don't process or anything like that. We don't really need to worry about those people.
Wave a flag, it's racist. If they
Who said it was racist to wave a flag? Unless the flag is the one from Germany between 1933 and 1945.
refer to the flag as being patriotic. Well, the British public have woken up to this. They can see this as a load
The British public are woke.
of nonsense. And actually, how long they'll put up with it, the public, I don't know. But if you look at the Labour conference, they've spent their whole time talking about other parties, particularly Reform. Just tell us what you stand for, Zakir, because I don't know.
I actually agree with her on this. You should not, your entire conference should not be about reform if you're the Labour Party. You need to focus on your policies. You need to focus on your vision. What is Keir Starmer's vision? I don't think he has a vision. That's a problem. Because if you're saying, look, we need to make difficult decisions because this is the goal, then it's easier to bring people along with you. People will, of course, want to see the situation improve. But if you look at parties, for example, if you look at the Green Party, they will say, look, we want to improve the environment, but that means that we're going to have to make difficult decisions for businesses. We're going to have to increase regulations, and we're going to have to, we're not going to be able to build houses everywhere. We're going to have to make sure that the houses are built in a particular area and that they have energy efficiency, stuff like that. So there are difficult decisions to be made, but the end goal is we have more housing available, we have a better future for young people, we have a better, cleaner environment. If you look at Reform UK, their goal is what? To stop immigration. So they will say whatever it takes to stop immigration. If you look at the SNP, their goal is to have an independent Scotland. So they will say, look, we need to make difficult decisions in Holyrood in order to run Scotland. But we know that our ultimate goal is Scottish independence. So you may vote for us to take day-to-day decisions, but at the end, you hope that we accumulate experience and we're able to influence Westminster in a way that we can have a second referendum so we can be independent. The same with Plaid Cymru and other parties like that. So what is Labour's goal at the moment? It used to be we want to improve the situation for the working class. We want to improve worker protections. And they are doing some of these things. But we don't see a vision. This is what we want to achieve by the end of this parliament. And if Keir Starmer doesn't have a vision, then he needs to step aside and let somebody else take over so that they can present their vision. Because this is not me talking. This is Sir John Curtis, the polling expert. He says, look, if you don't have a vision, it's going to be very difficult to sell unfavorable policies with the idea that we have to do this in order to achieve something else. If you have not, we're doing this to achieve what? We don't know. That's not good. What motivated you to wave the flags there, Susan? Is it celebrating your nation, or is it marking your territory? Because one is racially motivated and the other isn't. Good point. The UK has gone full far right. It's certainly looking like that, and I'm really concerned. I'm really concerned about what's happening with the Labour government. Is they're attempting to pander to the far right. You know, this sort of the rivers of blood speech from Keir Starmer. Okay, not rivers of blood, but an island of a nation of strangers. The rhetoric when it comes to smashing the gangs and stopping illegal immigration. And Starmer, I think, even used the word illegal immigration. I think a Rubicon has been crossed here, because the Prime Minister should not be using this language. When we consider it, when we're talking about illegal immigration, which is probably not even the proper term, it should be irregular migration. But if we're talking about irregular migration, we should be talking about people who overstay their visa or don't respect the conditions of their visa. We should not be talking about asylum seekers, because that's not irregular migration. You can say the method of arrival is irregular, but you can't be describing these people as illegal migrants, because then you fall into the trap that the far right have presented. We weren't using these terms 20 years ago. If you look at videos from 2020, the Conservatives were talking about how we have to be humanitarian, we have to bring people in to provide them support. We're congratulating ourselves on how many asylum seekers have come in, and we've supported them in the community, in society. The Conservative Party, just 5 years ago, you can find the clips of Chris Philp, my old friend, talking about how how asylum seekers, refugees, are a positive. When it came to immigration, the Conservatives not that long ago were talking about how immigration is beneficial to the UK. And now, because Farage turned up on a beach with binoculars and the media followed him, now we're all talking about how immigration needs to come down, how it needs to be stopped, how it's a massive problem, how it's a drain on society, drain on the taxpayer. It's concerning. It's really concerning. I'm just going to bounce about here a few different stories. I wanted to show you this one, which is really, really weird. And then I want to go to a more serious one. This is Donald Trump. So Donald Trump, a few days ago, this is insane. Okay. So Donald Trump a few days ago called a meeting of senior military personnel, generals from 3 stars up. admirals, commodores, flight commodores, and all of these senior generals, about 800 staff, I think it was, from places as far away as Japan or Southeast Asia, from military bases in Europe, all of these places. So they were all brought back to Virginia, I think it was. And Donald Trump said, I need to have a meeting with you. I need to have a conference. And it was just Donald Trump ranting and raving. And his war secretary, because he's now no longer, if you didn't know, it's no longer the Department of Defense, it's now the Department of War. Although Donald Trump presents himself as the peace president. I'm not sure how we're supposed to square that circle. Anyway, he invited them all around, and at a huge cost and a huge problem. It seems the Pentagon is not too happy about this, because they had to spend a huge amount of money organizing all of this and getting these generals over. And generals, they could have done a video conference, a secure video conference, but no, Trump wanted them in person. It sounds very much like a sort of 1935 Germany situation, where Hitler demanded that generals and the army pledge allegiance not to Germany but to the Führer. And it seems Donald Trump is doing something similar. It was the Secretary of State for War who was also demanding that the generals are fit. Like, they're generals, they're generally not in combat. Okay, they don't need to be physically fit. It's better if they are, but it shouldn't be a requirement. And considering that this guy couldn't do a press up, or a chin up, I should say. I'm not able to do a chin up, but I'm not the Secretary of War. Okay, but because he couldn't do it, he's now demanding fitness levels. Anyway, this is what Trump had to say.
The Golden Dome missile defense shield, it'll be the most sophisticated in the world. You watch it do well until they had some problems at the end with a little bit of a lack of ammunition, defensive ammunition, but they've got that taken care of. But I tell you, it's what we're doing is so good, and we deserve it. We help other countries with it. We don't have it ourselves. And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free. So I don't know if that made a big impact, but it does make a lot of sense. It actually makes, because they're having a hard time up there in Canada now, because the golden...
So Canada should join the 51st, become the 51st state. It should join the United States because of the Golden Dome defense shield. Okay, I'm not sure how many attacks are planned on Canada by, I don't know, Russia. Would you trust Donald Trump to defend your nation from Russia? Like, okay, maybe China might attack, but I think the chances of China are attacking the United States are pretty remote. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's pretty remote. North Korea, would they attack Canada? I don't know. But even if Canada did want to be part of this, well, they'd just pay for it. Why would they join the United States and give up sovereignty? Why would they give up control of their country to Agent Orange, this crazy person, in order to get support, to get coverage of this Golden Dome? There's no guarantee that even if, this is a hypothetical, but let's say for the sake of argument, Canada gives up its sovereignty, gives up its government, its parliament, gives up its links to the Commonwealth, becomes the 51st state of the United States, no longer a prime minister, they have a governor now. What would be the guarantee that Donald Trump would protect Canada? Like, there's no guarantee that Donald Trump would protect anyone apart from Donald Trump. Does anyone honestly believe that Donald Trump would protect the entire United States if it was being attacked? No, he'd say, no, take all the weapons and concentrate them around Washington or Mar-a-Lago. Defend Mar-a-Lago to the last bullet. Okay, to hell with the rest of the United States. You need to protect Mar-a-Lago. Now, this whole thing of inviting all these generals, I have a feeling that it's not going to go down too well for Trump, because he's pissing off the wrong people. You don't want to be pissing off 5-star generals or 4-star generals, because they could say, we're a bit tired of Donald Trump. Maybe we should be in charge instead. He doesn't know what he's doing. he's dictating to us things that we don't agree with. We don't think he's the right person for the job. We would be the right people for the job. This is how Donald Trump is playing with fire here. And he could end up getting burnt along with the United States. I just wanted to show you this because it's insane. Anyway, moving on. This is a story that's really heartbreaking, and it shows how something has to change. Now, many people reading the headline thought it was some sort of joke, or thought it was, oh, you're complaining about no carpet. But this shows fundamental problems when it comes to social housing, when it comes to rented accommodation in Britain. So it says, carpet poverty. I cried when I saw new home had bare and uneven floorboards. So this woman moved into, so it says here, when Cassie and her 3 children got the keys to their new home, they were upset to discover rooms had been left with bare and uneven floorboards. The social housing property in Halifax was deemed ready for a family despite having no carpets and no flooring covering in the bedrooms and living areas. So a charity eventually contacted her. She contacted charity and they provided her support. But look at the room here, the main bedroom. So there's no carpet on the floor. Now, people who are outside the United Kingdom might not understand why carpet is so important, because it's so cold in winter in particular. The only heating comes from the radiator on the left of the screen there, and the fireplace has been bricked up, so you can't light a fire in the room. So it can get really cold, especially if the house has poor insulation. And of course, if you're moving into social housing, you don't have a huge budget. You don't have a huge amount of money to spend. And carpeting rooms can be expensive. So the problem here is, let me see if I can find the part where it says, by law, UK landlords only have to put flooring in kitchens and bathrooms. So whoever was renting out this property, or who was the council were renting the property from, they're not obliged to provide flooring in kitchen, or only in kitchens and bathrooms. So bedrooms don't have to be provided with flooring. Now, some people were saying, oh, why didn't you just put down a rug? But the problem here is, if the floor is exposed, there's a risk of nails in it sticking up, or floorboards not being even. Because if you cover it all with carpet, it levels it out. But there's a risk to the children, it's a risk to the mother here. And, they're not asking for something. They're not asking for luxury. They're just asking for something basic. Now, fortunately, a charity has provided them with the carpeting. You can see it here. But it shows that there are many gaps left when it comes to social housing that people don't know. Many problems with social housing. That is, the issues we've seen already when it comes to mold or leaks and things like that, where councils don't have the money to fix it, where the councils don't have they used to fix these things, but because of the ending, with the introduction, I should say, of right to buy, it meant that many more properties were bought up, and then the councils provide support for fewer people, but at the same time there's more pressure on council houses, so there are fewer houses available. The councils are constantly juggling, trying to find homes for people, and usually families are prioritized, but they're given just the basics. And anyone else feel that this is absurd, having a floor being an issue in 2025? See, if you're renting the property and these are the rules, I don't need to provide floors, then just leave it to the tenant, or the tenant will put down carpet. Like, can you imagine any situation where you move into a house and you said, you have to provide the carpet for the floor? It's like, what? There's some like, what next? You need to put in the stairs. Oh, you need to use the stairs? Why not use a ladder? I'd like a stairs. Oh, then you're going to have to pay for that. It's not in the contract. They get grants from the government. So, if you're actually providing these things, you can get grants for it. But obviously the person renting it doesn't get a grant. But once again, like if you're the poorest people in society get the worst conditioned housing, and then if there are no carpets on the floors, it's going to be colder, which means that you're going to spend more money heating it. Because once again, if you're struggling to get by, you're not going to be able to afford to carpet rooms. It's expensive. You get somebody in to put it down. You can try to do it yourself, but if you don't have the right equipment, you're going to make a disaster. But thankfully, there was a charity who came forward and put the carpet in for her. But it shows that there are many gaps that have not been filled, and it's important that the government deal with these. These are small things that the government could deal with in order to fix the situation for ordinary people, to improve the situation for ordinary people. Okay, guys, I want to move on to another story here because I think this one is really important. So, as I mentioned before, Nigel Farage and Reform want to break into Wales. They want to win support in Wales. And this reporter here, a wonderful reporter called Will Hayward, had this to say about what Nigel Farage Reform are doing in the upcoming by-election.
We really need to talk about reform and immigration because there is a by-election right now in Caerphilly in Wales for the Welsh Parliament, and Reform are the favourites to win it. And they are pushing immigration as an issue massively. It's their main focus. Now, the thing is, immigration just isn't an issue in Caerphilly. When you look at the stats, everyone in Caerphilly, according to the last census, only 2.9% of people there were born outside the UK. 2.9%. That means that more than 97% of people in Caerphilly were actually born in the UK. Now, in the whole of Wales, there's 22 local authorities. Caerphilly actually has the lowest level of immigration of anywhere. In the whole of Wales, only 2 places, 2 out of 22, have more than 10% of the people born outside the UK. That's Cardiff and Newport, and quite a lot of that is down to university students. It is perfectly legitimate for people in Wales, and especially in Caerphilly, to be annoyed about the state of public services, education, health, housing. All of these things are really legitimate issues. But if people are telling you that the reason they are bad is because of immigration, it just doesn't stand up. The facts, the stats just don't bear it up. So be annoyed, be angry, be frustrated with your politicians, but be frustrated about the right things. And the final thing to say is, the Welsh Parliament has absolutely no power over immigration at all. It is not a devolved issue. So if that's what you're voting on, you're voting over the wrong issue because it doesn't apply here. If you like this sort of analysis, you can sign up for my newsletter, which is the Will Hayward newsletter. Just give it a Google and you'll find it.
And do check him out. He's really good. But at this point, yeah, there's two issues here. First of all, immigration is not a devolved matter. Like in Scotland, immigration is not a devolved matter. So immigration is controlled by the Home Office. So anyone who's voting in this by-election for Reform UK, thinking that they'll deal with immigration in Wales, has no understanding of how devolution works and no understanding how immigration works. And then, of course, the other point is people are going to vote for Reform, and Reform are not running to fix the situation for ordinary people. They're not running on a policy of let's improve housing for the Welsh population. We're not going to improve the NHS for people in Wales. We're not going to do anything positive for people. We're just going to run on an anti-immigration ticket. And we're hoping that people who don't spend any time around foreigners will hate foreigners enough to come out and vote for Reform. Because that's what it's about. And I did a response video recently where there was a councillor or a guy who's running as a candidate in Caerphilly where he was saying, oh, we need to talk about immigration, or Plaid is not talking about immigration and they don't think immigration is important. It's really concerning that people are voting for a party that doesn't care about them, that's tricking them using issues like immigration to convince them to come out and vote for them, even though they're not going to improve the situation for those people. Reform are not on the side of ordinary people. I keep saying it. Reform are on the side of the rich, the powerful, the elite. Nigel Farage keeps saying that he's anti-elitism. The guy who was, who born with a silver spoon in his mouth, who went to a private school, who was a city trader, who until recently was friends with the richest man in the world, who's friends with the President of the United States. That's not elitism. A guy who earns more money outside Parliament than in Parliament, who's supposed to be an MP front and centre. That's not elitism. The guy who attends parties with Rupert Murdoch while wearing yellow trousers. Okay, that's not elitism. I don't know what is. Wales in Irish is Brahana Big, Little Britain. I'd forgotten that. I thought it was different. I know Sassenach, Sassenach in is English, which means in Irish means Britain. Well, England, which is like Saxon. Don't know about the Angles. There's a funny thing going around the internet at the moment where people are claiming, you can claim to be ethnic English if you can if you can trace your family back to the Anglo-Saxon period. But Anglo and Saxon, Saxons were German. They came from that part of Europe. So they migrated to England, and they mixed with the Angles, and they became the Anglo-Saxons. So you're talking about foreigners coming in and mixing with the local population. But that's bad now. Okay. So it was good in the past, but it's bad now. And you can't claim to be true English, unless you can trace your family back to the period of the Anglo-Saxons. I didn't know there were records held back during the 9th century, the 10th century? Okay. Before the Norman invasion, it was the Anglo-Saxons. No, it was 1066. So the 9th century, 8th century. Don't know how good the records. I don't know. Was there a national archive back in the 8th century, 9th century? Look at Eleanor of Aquitaine. Yes. So from my understanding, the Gaza plan is Israel will just be able to occupy indefinitely. They won't honor this. No, the Gaza plan is not going to work. There's some. So it's about Tony Blair becoming the governor until a new administration has been put in place, and then people will be allowed to vote, but they won't be allowed to vote for Hamas. Okay, so it'll be truly democratic. Like, the reason the peace process was so successful, or it's still fragile, but it's still somewhat successful, is because it brought Republicans in from the cold. It convinced the Republicans to put aside weapons, to put aside armed struggle, and embrace the ballot box, embrace politics. And Sinn Féin has been extremely successful because of that. But what the Gaza plan seems to suggest is, no, we want Hamas gone completely. So there is no IRA Sinn Féin or Sinn Féin IRA. There is only Hamas, and even if they're political, doesn't matter if they're political or engaged in military attacks on Israel, they're all the same and they all have to go. So somebody who's never picked up a weapon, somebody who has never called for jihad, who's just working within Hamas in the administration, because if you were in the government at the time, you had to be a member of Hamas, that person has to do what? They have to renounce Hamas or something. And if they do they renounce it in their heart? Once again, I mentioned this before, and people say it all the time. You can destroy an organization, but you can't destroy an ideal or an idea, political idea. But I don't think it's... I'm not trying to be downbeat, but I don't think it's going to work. Anyway, one final story before... we're actually way over the time, so I better stop here. Guys, remember to check out the post-stream chat. Will be in the post-stream chat on Discord right after the show. But I want to finish with one funny video. So I want to say thanks to everyone who came on tonight. Thank you so much to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Thanks to everyone who smashed the like button. You can do it again if you haven't done already. You can do it now if you haven't done it already. And thanks to everyone who sent a super chat and the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Falling asleep, so gotta bail out. Sorry to hear that, Stefan, but great to see you on. Have a nighty night. Brad, before we go, only 2 more years. Then Blair is Faustian Pact. Is that so close, just another 2 years, and then he will be released from the devil. Thanks so much, Brad. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me bring it up on screen. And I will see, if I don't see you on the post-stream chat, I will see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. And let's enjoy this before we go. No. Where is the audio? Okay, let me start it again. Apologies.
We push the rice onto the back of the fork and eat like so.
How to eat rice in a Malaysian setting. This is called a spoon, and it is vastly superior than a fork when it comes to eating rice. Simply scoop the rice as such and gracefully shove it in your mouth. Don't be shy. colonize the rice, if you will. Scoop every last grain and in it goes. Now, if you're ready to level up, you may progress to using your hands. Of course, to a certain British types, eating with one's hands is considered unhygienic. Some might even say beastly. And to that I say, mak goi jau. Simply gather the rice with all 5 fingers, using 4 fingers as a base, and with your thumb, gently guide the rice into your mouth. And remember, never ever use a fork when eating rice. It is positively befuddling. Even the rice is confused.
I hate those previous videos. Anyway, so guys, have a great week. I will see you same bat time, same bat channel on Friday. Take care. And for those of you, I'll see you later on the post-stream chat.